Hey, it's Matt with Let's Talk Music. I'm here with Josh and Doug of the band. Sorry, guys, I'm Ice Age out of New York City, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
actually live. I actually live in South Jersey now, outside of Philly, but I'm originally from New York. Yeah.
okay. You still in NYC, Doug?
Yes, sir. I've actually been living in Queens for 13 years, and it's the longest I've been in one place.
So hey, man, you know what? I love the new music. I was jamming to it earlier today. I try to, whenever I'm doing an interview, I try to get a feel for the songs. Like I've already listened to it, you know what I'm saying, but I want to do it before the interview so that I have that energy. And I'm going to tell you, probably it's a tie between the Needle's Eye and All My Years that I like.
That's
Cool.
cool.
That's great.
That's
Yeah,
really
everybody
cool.
seems to have different favorites. Yeah, most
Yeah.
some people are into the prog year long epic songs, and some people like the more straightforward, kind of traditionally structured songs. So
Well,
you seem to
yeah,
be like in the latter category.
and I really enjoyed the way that Needle's Eye starts out. It's got a good opening riff to it, and it just you guys consider yourselves prog rock, correct?
Well, I would say, and this is something that we've debated a lot. Um, Heavy prog. Someone actually made that reference recently, and it really caught my ear, and I felt like it connected well with who we are because yes, there's absolutely progressive rock that's very deep in the roots of what we are and what we do. But there's also the progressive metal elements as well. But I think what happens is when that phraseology of progressive metal gets a bit overused, I feel like there's some limitation to just how dynamic the music can be. Because, yes, there are moments like The Needle's Eye is a great example that has that in your face progressive metal, like you said, the way it comes out of the gate. But then you take a song like River Flow, and to me, that's just got all of the beautiful essence of Genesis and Kansas and all of the great 70s prog.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Doug said, and I think that you know we go with the term progressive rock because it helps categorize us, it helps us find the audience, but we like to think of ourselves as more than that. Like you picked out two of the songs that are very, there's a lot of vocal hooks, they're kind of memorable, and they're not as crazy with the instrumental parts as some of the other songs. So we like to think that we run the gamut of styles, but progressive is absolutely included in that.
Yeah. So I mean, you are obviously the keyboardist and the vocalist. I was complimenting you on your nice array of keyboards there.
Yeah.
And that's I think a big part of prog rock. You look at Dream Theater, bands like that. They've got keyboards incorporated into it. They've got massive guitars, drums, and you guys have those elements. But like you said, I mean, the two that I really enjoyed were a little different than the rest. And it just those were the ones. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I liked them all. And I'm the kind of guy that say, well, this one wasn't my favorite, but I did enjoy them all. But just those two, they really caught my ear. And so like, tell me about the Needle's Eye. Give me your guys' take on what that song's about.
Well, that was a riff that, like you said, it comes right out of the gate with that heavy, catchy riff. That's all Jimmy. He's the riff meister. He's the genius that comes up with all those great guitar riffs you hear all over the place. And so he kind of came up with that riff, and I came up with the bridge. And Jimmy had a part for the chorus, and I came up with the chord progression underneath the chorus. So it's always a collaborative effort.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, obviously, it's a heavier song, so Jimmy was really the genesis of that song, being the guitar player. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Doug. What do you think about? What do you want to say about Needle's Eye?
It's got some really amazing transitions, and I know that like the what I call in my mind the B section, is just when the first time I heard it, I was like dumbfounded, like what's happening here? Like how do we build something rhythmic around this that still grooves? And that's what's amazing about our drummer Hal, is that as technical as he is as a drummer, he never loses that groove, that pocket. He has, those kind of funk underpinnings that are part of his playing. As much as he worships Rush, I mean, everyone in the band loves Rush. There's three guys in this band that are like Rush devotees in the biggest way.
Right.
And how, you can make an argument for him being the biggest, of the three of us, me and Josh included. But it still grooves, and I love. I mean, the song. There's things about it that have some of those classic 90s prog metal elements, like when the keyboard comes in and starts to double the guitar a little bit. It just like takes it up to the next level, and the vocals are just incredible. Like Josh sounds better than ever to my ears. I mean, like and a lot of people have noticed this. And, you listen to his vocals on the first two albums, and a lot of times when a band takes a break and they come back, immediately it's like, "Ooh, sure, that was such a great idea, guys." But with this band and with his voice, it's like there's no time. It's like we just stepped right into what this album is in essence. And also, I think because you asked about what the song is about, Josh, you should talk about the lyrics, because those are really very powerful on this one.
Oh, well, thank you for all those compliments, Doug. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, that song, like Doug said, that song is it's a great example of the different things the band can do. We can do heavy, we can do progressive. We go off on all these odd time signature expansions of the main guitar riff that Jimmy and I are playing together on guitar and keyboards, and it's got the catchy chorus. It's got all those elements. As far as the lyrics, I mean, they're kind of self-explanatory. I mean, I don't like to be too explicit about what the lyrics mean. I like for the listeners to kind of puzzle that out on their
Right.
own. But there's a lot of social commentary and political commentary buried in there, and that's pretty much all I should say about the lyrics. I like the listener to kind of tease out what they think I mean.
And I like that, because that's some people are straightforward about it, like, oh well, this is about a hard time in my life, or this is about political views or social views or whatever. And I feel like part of listening to music, and one of the really cool parts about it, is being able to interpret, I'm trying to say, interpret the song to what you feel like it means. It may not mean the same thing that you was meaning when you wrote it or when you performed it, but when I listen to it, my interpretation of your song might be different, but still kind of in the same category. And that's what's cool about it. And I like that you want to keep that kind of a mystery.
Yeah, that's well said. And yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm always kind of going for. I think like you said, sometimes what you write, what you're intending to mean with the lyrics, is not necessarily how it's interpreted by the listener, given their life experience and their point of view.
Right.
So I like to leave a little bit of room for interpretation, like you said. So that was well said on your part.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I love music. And one of my favorite things about doing this is getting to hear new music constantly, daily. I started out working with like one or two publicists, and now my email goes stupid every day. And
There's a lot of new stuff coming all the time. So
oh yeah, and
it must be a busy man.
It's hard to sort through it all, because I have a normal job. You know what I mean? So here I am, driving down my truck, drive my truck down the road, because I'm a truck driver, and I'll
Cool.
I'll stop somewhere, and I'll hit a song and I'll listen to it, and then next stop I'll listen to it. So, depending on how many stops a day I have, depends on how many songs I get to listen to. Well, just listen to the songs doesn't help because then I've got to read the press release too. So it's quite busy, man. But I tell you what, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I mean, I never seen it blowing up like this. I mean, my YouTube doesn't have millions of viewers or anything like that. Matter of fact, I think it got like 141.
Well,
But
listen, you got to start somewhere. Listen, we don't have many either. We haven't been around for a long time. I mean, we haven't put anything out in a long time. So we're
right,
certainly
22 years, right?
yeah, 22
Exactly.
last time. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for us, our drummer Hal kept a Facebook page going, which was great, and he would always be communicating with people that reached out to us, and just got they would always be reaching out, sharing how much they admired the early work, the first couple of albums, and wishing that we would do something else. And are you guys ever going to do anything else? And now, as we prepared for this album coming out, now we've branched out. We have our own YouTube channel where we're posting our official videos and our official audio visualizers, and we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're everywhere that you could imagine, every platform.
Social, yeah.
We're there, and that's what you have to do, and that's one of the great, in the the blessing and the curse of the digital realm. For us, it's a great opportunity for people to discover us. Like there was a kind of just a casual video of Josh playing part of one of the songs on an acoustic piano, and I posted it on TikTok, and it like exploded.
Yeah.
With the number of views, so it's it's a good thing. It's good.
Yeah,
for
it's
us.
a great outlet. I mean, we didn't have that 20, 25 years ago when we started. Obviously, it was a different world.
Right.
So now, I mean, like you say, you start out with a small number of followers, and hopefully you build it up. So we're both in the same ballpark.
Well, and that's something I want to ask you about. So, 22 years ago, you had CDs, you had, somewhat of an MTV. It was a lot different than what today's age is. And when you guys came back into it, was you prepared for that kind of change, or was it a little shocking?
I think we were prepared. I mean, Doug is very tech savvy, and Hal is as well, I think we were prepared for it as much as you can be.
Right.
Like I say, I mean, back in the day when we started, the internet was basically just starting,
right.
Just the first few years. So there, nowadays, obviously the outlets have exploded, and there's lots of different ways to get the music out there. So, Doug is kind of the guru when it comes to that stuff. So he was certainly prepared. I'm still trying to learn it all. I feel like an old man in that regard. I'm still trying to figure it all out. But yeah, I think we were prepared. I think we had it pretty well covered.
Okay, yeah, it is. I mean, but you got to kind of look at it this way too, I guess. Back in the day, you had MTV. You spent a shit ton of money, or your label spent a shit ton of money to help you make a video and stuff. And now you can do a video on YouTube for, a few grand, or maybe even
Right.
less. And you have all of the social platforms that helps you get out there. I mean, Facebook and Instagram, and a lot of people, they're like, oh man, I hate that shit. It's, nothing but garbage talk and blah, blah, blah. Well, when you like on things that are garbage talk, that's what your feed's going to be about. When
Nice.
I go on my feed is 90% music.
Right. And that's the algorithm. And you're absolutely right. That's why I said it's a blessing and a curse, because, there's the negative aspects of social media, but then, for music junkies like us, because as well as being musicians, we're huge fans of music. We love it. We talk about it. We debate about it. And so, the fact that's there, it's, to me, it's a benefit. Like you said, I mean, there's a movie that came out recently that was principally shot on iPhones and and laptop computers.
Hmm.
Obviously, the quality is never going to be the same as a legit, camera. But the
Right.
point is that the playing field is leveled in that, whereas, as you were saying, early 90s, a band could easily spend $500,000
Hmm.
on a music video. And when I say spend, I mean the record label spend and then tell the band that, okay, you owe us
Yeah, that's right.
$500,000, but now we're going to recoup out of anything that you make before
Right.
anything else. So yeah, I mean, we're really lucky. And our first official video was For the Needle's Eye, the song that we've been talking about quite a bit. And it's got an incorporation of live performance footage. It's also got conceptual footage, and it's also got that lyric video essence, which for this song is perfect because the lyrics are so significant. And we've got another video in the works as well. So we want to keep that engine rolling of drawing attention to this new album.
Yeah. Which I really like the name Waves of Loss and Power. How what was the thought behind that?
Well, I mean, as the writing process was going on, I was thinking about some lyrical themes that I was going to get into, and it all kind of started to relate to, just the experience of, the highs and lows of life. And, there's certain times in your life where you feel empowered and you can conquer the world and take on anything and be successful. And there are other times where you suffer losses or setbacks or, terrible things happen to people. I mean, life isn't fair.
Right.
We all have those highs and lows. And so, I was thinking about the metaphor of waves on the ocean and how they ebb and flow. And life is kind of like that. You have highs and lows, and the tidal waves of loss and power kind of relates to those concepts, I think.
I like that. That's a good explanation.
Thanks.
So, yeah, I mean, and I mean, since it's been 22 years, I don't think you guys weren't pretty real affected musically by COVID, correct?
No, we were, and I'll tell you the respect in which that did impact us, because we had actually reached a point before lockdown where we had gotten into a serious rhythm of writing and doing demo level recording of the songs that were happening. And when lockdown occurred, suddenly we couldn't get in the same room together, and we were forced to figure out how do we not drop the ball and keep moving with this and not lose the momentum and the fire, because the writing was happening. I just remember, like, Josh would come up with something and then send it out, and then Jimmy comes up with something, and it's like it was just flying. I mean, it was like there was all of this creativity pent up that was dying to come out. And so, Jimmy, who's really the ultimate tech guru in the band, was aware of a software program called Jamulus. And whereas with things like Zoom and Google Meet and FaceTime, there's always going to be a delay and a lag. So you could never actually play music together on any of those platforms.
Right.
But with Jamulus, if one of the participants actually runs a physical server from their location, and if everyone is on super high speed wired internet and they're in proximity to their routers and they're able to adjust the buffering because the software allows for that, you can actually play together successfully. And that's what we did. That's what we did, during lockdown. And that's how we were able to keep writing and keep the momentum going. And it was a period of adjustment, because especially with music that's this dense and complicated at times, you really rely on being in the same room and being able to make eye contact and being able to do all that. And for us with Jamulus, it was basically we're on headphones and we all have a vocal mic in front of us, and Josh for singing, obviously, but we all needed to have a mic so that we could talk to each other. And we adapted to it really well. And I think the fact that this album is in your hands and getting into other people's hands now is somewhat of a miracle, that we were able to finish writing the album in that way.
Well, and I mean, that kind of says something about the times too. I mean, 22 years ago, you'd have been kind of screwed, you know?
Yeah, right.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now you've got the digital age and you can share files and use programs like that. And, you know, the fact that, you know, there's somebody that's able to come up with a software like that, you know?
Yeah,
So it's like you said, it's got its blessings and its curses, but I mean, it sounds like right now that the digital age has been really good to you guys.
Yeah, that program was a lifesaver. I mean, it's tough to replicate that energy of being in a room and feeding off each other musically and the volume, and it's a very different vibe. You know, when you're used to writing that way to being alone in a room on a computer, you can see and hear everybody, but it's just a different vibe. But because there was no delay and we were really able to play together, we were kind of able to replicate that energy in some sense, and it really was a very creative time. You know, and we were, you know, as you say, we're lucky to have that technology because, you know, decades ago it wouldn't even have been a possibility.
Right, right. I mean, yeah, it's just been kind of well, we gotta wait till this is over.
Yeah,
right.
pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean I know I've talked to tons of bands that it did impact. You know, actually I just did an interview with a band called Fire Sets Fire before you guys. And you know, they were talking about, man, we had this great momentum going, and then the lockdown happened. And we lost all of our, you know, it was like the rug was pulled out from underneath us. And you know, something that I've kind of talked with a few musicians about is that during that time period, yes, it sucked because you were locked down and you had to share files or, you know, use programs like the ones that you used. But another good point to that is that people were able to take more time to do their music.
Yes,
It wasn't rushed. So, you know, whether you're under a label or you're DIY, you were able now to take that time and make, and you know, I was telling them, I feel like the quality of music since COVID is a little bit better because people were able to take more time to write and take more time to come up with riffs and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think obviously that was a terrible time, but it did give everybody kind of time to rethink life, and maybe a lot of, you know, not everybody certainly, but some people had more time to be creative and think about what they might want to do hobby wise and creatively. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for musicians, you know, in our case, it did give us more time, as you say, to really work on the stuff carefully and to focus on it in a way that we wouldn't be able to if we were distracted in a more normal time by the everyday events of life. You know, so
Yeah.
that's the point.
And I feel like you know, a band like yours, with, you know, the technicality of your music, that might have helped a little too with, you know, being able to throw in certain tweaks that you might not have been able to do before, you know. Like I said, you can really hear, like, I've not heard any of your old music. I've just heard this new album,
Mhm.
and I mean, it I love it. It's
Thanks.
very well put together, very well orchestrated, and
Thank you so much.
you guys being huge Rush fans, you nail it out of the park with the technicality. I mean, you know, it is very technical, and it's fun to listen to.
Ah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, you mentioned Dream Theater, and of course, you know, all the prog bands owe them a big debt of gratitude because they and Fates Warning, Queensryche, you know, there were a few seminal progressive metal bands that kind of got the whole thing started. And part of being a progressive band is the technicality of the music. I mean, that's what the fans want to hear, and that's the kind of players we are, you know.
Right.
So that element is always going to be there. Yeah, you should definitely check out The Great Divide and Liberation. Those are the first two albums we did for Magna Carta back in the day.
I
And I
will
think
do that.
you'll find a very similar style. And a lot of people are saying that this one is seems like it's just a continuation of those and that the 20 years never happened. But, you know, I hope
So
you like those as well. Thanks so
what,
much.
what was with the 20-year hiatus?
Well,
well,
go ahead, Doug.
there were a number of factors. The band, I came into the band in 2001, and literally 6 weeks before the release of the second album, which was Liberation. And because there just wasn't enough support from the label for us to get on tours or get, direct support slots with bands like Fates Warning or Symphony X or other bands, that would have been, perfect partners for us. Pain of Salvation, another example. It became very frustrating, and we became disillusioned with the music business. It felt like Ice Age doing what we were doing had hit a wall. And then we took some time and we tried being very experimental writing wise and just doing a format that was still very melodic and heavy, but not quite within the same architecture of prog. Shorter form, and some would say more contemporary. And we even thought about just rebranding the whole thing as something else. And we spent years on that, and we wrote an incredible number of songs. I mean, like literally dozens of songs, and some great material. But looking back on it in hindsight, it wasn't Ice Age being authentic to who we are as a band.
Right.
Just wasn't. It was, we were trying to force something in a way that it was good, but it wasn't as good as the true nature of the band. And so we took a break, and, everyone stayed really close friends and stayed in contact, and like that, we are a family. Like, Hal will always refer to us, and I agree, as a brotherhood. And that certainly never wavered at all. But some of the guys, myself included, did other things. I did sideman work, I did session work, and as much as I did, and I had cool experiences in my entire life, and I've been in more bands than I could count, there is no other band that measures up as far as the quality of the songwriting, the quality of the singing, and just the relationships with Josh and Hal and Jimmy. There's no comparison. It's the best band I've ever been in my life, and it's the most fulfilling musically, and it's the one that like it completely fulfills me musically. Like I don't need to do anything else and be happy. Like this completely serves all of that. So we, around 2015, Hal organized just like a family barbecue at his house, and we were all invited, but he also said, hey guys, bring instruments, like just for the hell of it, like no pressure, but just, bring a keyboard, bring a guitar, bring a bass, and let's just get in a room, like for the hell of it, for old time's sake. And as soon as we did that, immediately within minutes, like the chemistry was palpable, and Jimmy was already coming up with, as Josh said, he's just this savant of riffs that no one else could come up with and don't sound like anyone except him. When he picks up a guitar, it's always something brand new that you've never heard before. And we just looked at each other, and it was very obvious, like, okay, like there's unfinished business for Ice Age.
Right.
So then that was where everything started rolling.
Yeah, I think we always knew that, all four of us always knew that we'd come back to this band, because like Doug said, I mean, I've done other projects and with other bands and other people, and creatively, this is where the juices really flow, and the chemistry music wise is just undeniable. We just love writing with each other, and it was only a matter of time that we came back to each other and started writing new material. But you know how it is, life happens, and people have kids, and things happen, and people move,
Right.
and all that stuff, but it's great that we were able to get it back together.
And again, I mean, I love your thorough explanations. You guys are very well, like I just said, thorough and telling me, the answers to my questions, and I really like that. It doesn't really leave any room for, you know, thoughts or doubt or whatever. And it's when you say that, we tried other projects and this and that, and we came back to Ice Age. So what it basically gets down to is, chemistry and roots. And that's what you guys are about. And that's probably two of the most important things in a band's, that makes it work.
Yeah, I mean, as far as roots, I mean, yeah, Jimmy and I have been playing together since 1988, so that's 35 years now. So
Yeah,
the roots are deep there with the two of us, and well, really with the four of us. I mean, we've all been playing together for more than 20 years now. So yeah, as you say, it's not only musical chemistry, but like Doug said, we're all friends, and that bond of the relationship and also the musical chemistry is it's a powerful thing. It's a big part of life.
yeah. I mean, you're a family.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I mean, families fight, families have arguments, and families stick together. So and you're a family that shares a love and passion for the same thing, and that's I feel like it's an unbreakable bond.
There's a
I would agree.
there's a mutual respect in this band that is unlike any other. There's no one that's ego driven and feels like they need to kind of lay down an agenda for other people to follow. It's so democratic, it's so respectful. There's just such admiration for each other's talent and what we all bring to it that I mean, I've been in so many other bands that have had ridiculous drama over ridiculous things.
Right.
That never happened in this band. Like,
Most bands have that drama. We just don't have it.
Yeah,
We just never have.
It's just not that kind of band. It's like
Right.
we're here, like we all have the same purpose.
It's all about the
purpose,
music for us.
Yeah, it's just about being creative. There's no higher reward for this band than to create something new. And from that, first, one riff, and then the journey that takes us on to build it into something that becomes a song.
Yeah, and I mean, you say ego driven, and I feel like in a band that's going to be together for years and successful, there's no room for egos. And it's sad because egos has torn apart so many great bands.
Oh yeah.
I mean, one of my favorites, Skid Row, was torn apart by egos
Oh yeah.
and still is. I mean, everybody I think would love to see an original Skid Row reunion, but it's not going to happen. Dave Sabo and Rachel Bolan have both said hell no. Sebastian's all for it, but I mean, he's doing all right on his own. I mean, I've seen him in concert a few times since he's been on his own, and always a joy to see him, man. Always puts on a killer show. Dude's got a great voice. So I mean,
He sure does.
They get asked in the press, I would say practically on a weekly basis, about reuniting, and it's the fans that have that nostalgia, and it's totally understandable, and I respect it. Like, you have that nostalgia. These guys are all alive still, thank goodness, and they can all still play and sing, and you want to see the band that you love go out and do it. I feel like I saw Skid Row open up for Pantera.
I did too. Slave to the Grind and Vulgar Display of Power.
That's right.
I've seen the concert. Yeah.
And after Sebastian left, I never felt like they had a singer that really could measure up to his ability until they got Eric Gronwall, who they have now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the first time that they've actually had someone that can absolutely do justice to the legacy material, as far as his range and his stage presence. I feel like this is the closest that they're going to come to being able, I mean, because Sebastian, he has one of those unmistakable voices. He doesn't sound like anyone, and nobody sounds like him.
Right.
That's how I feel about Rob Halford. That's how I feel about, some of,
Bruce Dickinson. I mean,
yeah. I mean, come on.
Ronnie James Dio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ozzy. I mean, Ozzy.
Greats,
He
yeah.
opens his
Come on.
mouth. So.
Nobody said, those guys are just, in classes by themselves. But like you said, personality wise, no matter how much the fans might want that reunion to happen, it may or may not ever happen. And it's a
Right.
shame that people can't get around, whatever that, if there's a lot of bad history, sometimes you have to think of it like a divorce. When you divorce somebody, the chances of you getting back together and it working aren't great, because whatever bad history was there, it's still there. Right. And it's eventually going to creep in.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's hard for fans to understand that, because, like Doug said, they crave the old days and the old material and the old feeling that was created for them when they first heard the music, which is understandable.
Oh, yeah. But see, I'm one of them fans. I'm very nostalgic. I just bought a Victrola record player. Been jamming some vinyl that because I still love the tangible piece of art that I can hold in my hands.
Yeah, I miss it. I miss those days, going to the record store and looking at the cover and feeling the album, and it's a very different experience. It's a tactile experience as well as an audio experience.
All right, guys. Well, I've only got 30-minute Zoom, so we're about out of time. But I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks. So did we, man.
Really love what you're doing, and
thank you so much.
Looking forward to hearing some new stuff, man.
All right, we're working on it. We'll get there.
All right. Well, you guys have a good evening, and again, thank you very much for being on.
You too.
Thank you so much for having us. It was great to meet you, and we really appreciate it.
No problem, man. I appreciate you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Have a great night.